When the sun lifts over Lagos, two worlds wake up side by side, one wrapped in marble and mirrors the other in dust and duty. In Ikoyi, billionaire Kobe Adeyemi believes poverty is a stain that never washes off. In Mushin, Amara Nwosu scrubs floors with hands that have known hunger, prayer, and quiet pride. One accusation, $20,000 gone, turns a doorway into a battlefield. Words sharper than broken glass slice through dignity, and a good name shatters in the street. But truth has feet. It walks slowly, then arrives like thunder. Tonight you'll witness arrogance meet consequence, and a heart once hardened learn to bend. Stay with me as loyalty is tested, mercy is weighed, and the line between wealth and worth disappears. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing our circle of listeners around the world. And if stories like this move, you subscribe and join our African Stories family. The city of Lagos stirred awake before dawn, the hum of life weaving through the alleys of Mushin and the polished boulevards of Ikoyi. Two different worlds so close and yet oceans apart. Mushin smelled of fried akara from street vendors of diesel smoke and sweat, while Ikoyi glittered with polished chrome gates, fountains that never ran dry, and glass towers catching the first orange rays of the Sunday. In a mansion on the quietest corner of Ikoyi, Kobe Adeyemi paced restlessly. At 32, he was one of Nigeria's youngest billionaires, known for his sharp investments, European suits, and merciless tongue. The magazines called him a lion among men, but his staff knew him as something else, a man who never forgave a single mistake. His eyes were cold. His words carried the weight of judgment. The night before, his girlfriend, Biola Karim, had hosted a wild party at his mansion. Kobe hated parties, hated chaos, but Biola loved them. She had filled the mansion with laughter that grated on his nerves, with smoke and spilled wine that stained the marble floors. Expensive cake had been trampled into his Persian rug, cigarette ashes floating in his pool. By morning, the disorder gnawed at him like fire ants on bare skin. Kobe picked up his phone and called Pearl Clean Services, Lagos's most respected cleaning company. His voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "Send someone immediately," he ordered. "I don't care who. But remember this, they must not touch anything that doesn't belong to them. You people know how these cleaners behave." The manager stammered through the line, "Yes, sir, we'll send someone right away." Far away in Mushin, a cramped single room hummed with life. Amara Nwosu, just 23, was already awake, rinsing her worn uniform at a bucket beside the doorway. Her mother Ngozi coughed softly from the mat where she slept, and her younger brother Chidi, 12 years old, was still curled up with his schoolbooks, too poor to afford electricity for late-night studying. Life had been merciless since their father died in a road accident 5 years earlier. Amara had left school to work, trading her dreams for survival. She washed clothes, scrubbed offices, mopped staircases, anything that could put beans and Gary on the wooden table. When the manager called her that morning with the urgent job, her heart skipped. Ikoyi, the richest neighborhood. The client, she was warned, was wealthy and proud. "Do your work quickly," Amara, the manager said. "And do not touch what isn't yours. These rich ones are suspicious." Amara bowed her head. Yes, sir. She had heard those warnings all her life. Poverty, it seemed, was treated like a disease you had to keep proving you didn't spread. By mid-morning, she arrived at the mansion. The gate was taller than her entire house in Mushin, painted black and glinting in the Sunday. The guards let her in after confirming her name. As she stepped inside, her breath caught the chandelier above the living room, sparkled like 100 tiny suns. The leather chairs gleamed, golden frame paintings stared down from the walls, and a television wider than her entire mattress sat fixed to the wall. Kobe lounged on the sofa, scrolling through his tablet. His eyes lifted slowly, traveling from her dusty sandals to the neatly tied scarf on her head. Then a smirk spread across his lips. "So you are the one they sent," he said. His voice dripped with disdain. "Do your work quickly. And remember, I don't trust poor people. Keep your hands where they belong. If you steal, I will know." The words stung like hot oil splashed on bare skin, but Amara kept her head low. She had learned to swallow insults to survive. Her hands tightened on her bucket, and she answered softly, "Yes, sir." She bent to her task, scrubbing the marble until it gleamed so brightly it reflected her weary face. As she moved, Kobe's voice cracked the air again and again. "Don't miss that corner. Careful with that vase, it's from Italy. Use the right polish for that rug, it costs millions." Amara said nothing. Instead, she hummed a gospel tune her mother used to sing on Sundays. "When the Lord fights for me, no tongue can condemn me." The melody was soft, but it wrapped her spirit like a shield. For 3 long hours she worked. Sweat dampened her brow, her fingers raw from the scrubbing. Finally, she rinsed her rag, packed her bucket, and stood near the door. I'm done, sir, she whispered. Kobe did not even look up. He waved his hand like swatting away a fly. Leave. Her chest tightened, but she obeyed. Outside, the sun hit her skin like fire. She whispered a short prayer for strength and began her long walk back to the bus stop. Minutes after she left, Kobe strode into his study to collect some documents from his safe. He turned the lock, opened the heavy steel door, and froze. His hands shook as he counted the bundles. Once, twice. His chest burned hotter with each pass. $20,000, he muttered. His voice grew into a roar that shook the walls. Gone. Viola Karim entered still in her silk robe, phone in hand. Her brows furrowed. Baby, what's wrong? Why are you shouting like that? My money. Kobe's face darkened like a storm cloud. $20,000 is missing from my safe. Viola gasped dramatically, placing a hand over her chest. Wait, wasn't that cleaner here just now? Who else could it be? Poor girls like her don't see money every day. She probably couldn't resist. The thought pierced Kobe's pride like a spear. His face twisted with fury. You're right. She must have taken it. How dare she? Without hesitation, he dialed Pearl Clean. His voice was ice. One of your cleaners, Amara Nwosu, just left my house. She stole $20,000 from my safe. If you don't act immediately, I'll destroy your company. Hand her over to the police now. The manager stammered. But sir, Amara has worked with us for years. She is... Shut up, Kobe barked. Do it or your company will never operate again. In Mushin, Amara had barely placed her bucket down when police sirens wailed. A jeep screeched into the compound, officers leaping out. Where is Amara Nwosu? One barked. Her eyes widened. I'm Amara. Officer, what is... You are under arrest for stealing $20,000 from Mr. Kobe Adeyemi. Cold steel clamped onto her wrists. What? No, that's not true. Her voice cracked as her mother ran forward, clutching her wrapper. Please, my daughter is innocent. She would never steal. Ngozi's voice shook with tears. Chidi clung to Amara's arm, sobbing. Leave my sister alone. She's not a thief. But the police ignored him, dragging her past neighbors who murmured, shaking their heads. Some whispered in pity, others with suspicion. Ah, so the girl is a thief after all. Amara's face burned with shame. Mama, believe me, I didn't do it, she cried as the car door slammed. Ngozi collapsed to the ground wailing while Chidi's small fists beat the dusty air. In his mansion, Kobe poured himself a glass of wine. He leaned back, satisfied his pride, swelling like a drumbeat. Poor people are all the same, he muttered. Give them a chance and they reveal their true nature. Beside him, Viola smiled, sliding her arm around his shoulder. See, that's how you handle them. Don't ever be soft. Keep them in their place. Kobe nodded, yet deep inside a whisper of unease stirred. What if she really didn't take it? But he drowned the thought with another sip of wine. The night in Mushin was heavy with grief. The one-room home that usually carried the faint sounds of laughter and Chidi's humming was silent, except for Ngozi's sobs. She sat on the raffia mat, hands clutching her wrapper as if it could hold her heart together. Beside her, Chidi's face was swollen from crying. He had not eaten since Amara was taken away. Every knock at the gate made him jump, hoping it was his sister returning. But only the emptiness of night answered. Neighbors gathered in small groups outside, whispering. Some shook their heads sadly. That Amara girl is too decent, I cannot believe it. But others sneered. Poverty can make anyone steal. Who knows what temptation she saw in that big man's house? Each word was a dagger to Ngozi's chest. She knew her daughter. Amara was honest, disciplined, and carried dignity in her suffering. The thought of her child in handcuffs broke her more than hunger ever could. By morning, Ngozi wiped her tears and stood tall, though her knees trembled. I cannot sit and do nothing, she whispered. She took Chidi's small hands into hers. Stay home, my son. Pray for your sister. I will go and beg this rich man myself. Chidi's eyes widened. Mama, don't go, they will insult you. Ngozi brushed his cheek. Let them insult me. If it means saving Amara, I will endure. She tied her wrapper tightly, slipped on her worn slippers, and set out for Ikoyi. The journey felt endless. Each polished car that passed reminded her she did not belong. Her throat tightened when she finally stood before the towering gates of Kobe Adeyemi's mansion. Two security guards, their uniforms crisp-eyed her suspiciously. One folded his arms. Madam, what do you want here? Ngozi bent low, her voice trembling. Good morning, my sons. I am Ngozi Nwosu, the mother of Amara, the cleaner who worked here yesterday. Please, I beg you, I need to see Oga Kobe. The guards exchanged glances. Before they could respond, the gate swung open and a sleek car rolled out. The tinted windows slid down, revealing Biola Karim in a fitted dress phone pressed to her ear. When she saw Ngozi, her brows arched. Ngozi quickly stepped forward, bowing. "Good morning, madam. Please forgive me for disturbing. My name is Ngozi. I beg you in the name of God, my daughter Amara is not a thief. She would never steal from your home." Biola's lips curled into a mocking smile. "So you are the mother of that criminal?" Ngozi shook her head violently. "No, madam, she is innocent. She works hard. She has never stolen. Please help me speak to Oga Kobe. Tell him to release my daughter." Biola laughed, the sound cold as broken glass. "Boyfriend, do you know who you are talking to? Kobe is not just my boyfriend, he is my husband-to-be, and I do not waste time listening to poor, ugly women. You should be ashamed you raised a thief." Ngozi's knees weakened, but she clasped her hands together. "Please, madam, don't say that. Poverty is not a crime. My daughter is a good girl. She is all I have left. Please, in God's name, show mercy." Biola stepped closer, her perfume strong and suffocating. "Mercy, you are very foolish. Your daughter stole $20,000. Do you even know how many lifetimes you would need to see that money? Poor people like you are greedy, dirty, and shameless. Now your child will rot in prison, and you should thank God they didn't arrest you too." Ngozi burst into tears. "Madam, please don't talk like this. We are suffering, yes, but we are not criminals. Please just talk to him. Let him release Amara." Biola hissed, snapping her fingers at the guards. "If this dirty woman doesn't leave, throw her out. She is polluting the air here." The guards shifted uncomfortably. One muttered, "Madam, maybe we should—" "Do as I say," Biola snapped. Ngozi trembled, tears streaming down her face. She whispered one last time, "One day, madam, the truth will come out. My daughter is innocent and God will fight for her." The guards led her away gently, pity flickering in their eyes. As the car drove off, Biola smirked, tapping on her phone. Inside, her voice rang clear as she spoke to her friend Sandra. "My dear, you won't believe what I did. I really outsmarted Kobe this time. That man thinks he is a king." Sandra chuckled on the other end. "Tell me, babe, what did you do? You sound too happy." Biola lowered her voice, though still loud enough for anyone close by to hear. "I stole his money, $20,000. Already spent 10. Can you imagine? I bought new clothes, jewelry, and even booked us a VIP table at the club tonight. We will party like queens." Sandra gasped. "What, Biola? You are too bold." Biola laughed carelessly. "Sometimes I almost pity that poor cleaner girl. She is in a police cell now, suffering for what I did. But beautiful girls like us must enjoy life. Kobe is too stingy, always hoarding his millions." At that very moment, coolly one of the guards adjusted the tiny camera by the gate. Its microphone had caught every word. His jaw tightened. He had seen Ngozi's tears, heard her pleas. Now he knew the truth. He saved the recording on his phone, praying for courage to reveal it when the time was right. Unaware of the trap tightening, Biola twirled her car keys and walked back inside. Later that evening, Kobe passed down the corridor of his mansion. Biola's laughter floated from her room. At first he ignored it, but then a sentence froze him in his tracks. "I stole his money." His chest tightened. He pressed against the wall, listening. Each word hit him like thunder. Biola had taken the money. She was the thief. She was the liar. Fury boiled through his veins. He flung the door open. Biola dropped her phone in shock, eyes wide. "Kobe, you scared me." "Shut your mouth." Kobe's voice thundered like a storm. "I heard everything. Every word. You stole my money. You let me accuse an innocent girl. You put her in prison. You are evil." Biola fell to her knees, trembling. "Baby, please let me explain. I still have 10,000 left. I will pay you back. It was the devil, my love. I swear." "Don't lie." Kobe's face burned. "It was greed, your wickedness. You disgust me. Bring back the rest of the money in 2 days, or I will throw you into prison myself." He grabbed his phone with shaking hands, dialing the police commissioner. His voice cut like ice. "Release Amara Nwosu immediately. Clear her record. She is innocent." The officer on the other end stammered, "Yes, sir, at once." Kobe dropped the phone and glared at Biola, his chest heaving. "Get out of my sight. You have 2 days. If you fail me, you will rot in prison." Biola sobbed, crawling forward, but he turned away. The walls of arrogance he had built began to tremble as guilt crept in. He had humiliated an innocent woman, dragged her family through shame, all because of his pride. But Amara? She was free now, and soon, whether she accepted it or not, he would face her again. The Mushin compound stirred with noise the following morning. Chickens clucked in the backyard, the chatter of neighbors filled the air, and the smell of fried bean cakes drifted from a roadside stall. But inside Ngozi's room, silence pressed like a weight. Chidi sat on the wooden stool, his eyes fixed on the doorway, waiting for the impossible for his sister to return. Then suddenly the sound of boots echoed in the corridor. Ngozi's heart leapt. The same officers who had dragged Amara away now stood at the entrance, this time without handcuffs. Behind them, a female officer stepped forward. "Where is Ngozi Nwosu?" Ngozi rose quickly, fear tightening her throat. I am here. What is it? Has something happened to my daughter?" The officer's voice softened. "Madam, your daughter has been released. Orders from above. She is innocent." Before Ngozi could respond, Amara stepped out from behind the officer, her eyes swollen from tears but her back still straight. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to stop. Then Chidi leapt into her arms, sobbing, "Sister, they let you go. I knew you were not a thief." Ngozi dropped to her knees, hugging both children. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered prayers of thanks. The neighbors, curious as ever, crowded the corridor. Some nodded in shame at their earlier gossip, while others muttered excuses. "We knew she was a good girl. The rich always blame the poor." But Amara's joy was heavy. Her body still remembered the cold of the cell, the mocking laughter of women who had called her a thief. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw iron bars and heard Biola's cruel voice. Freedom felt unreal. That afternoon, when the compound finally grew quiet, Amara sat outside on the stool. The sun beat down children, played football in the dust, and still her heart could not rest. She whispered, "God, why me? Why must I always carry shame not of my making?" It was then the sound of an engine broke through her thoughts. A sleek black SUV pulled into the narrow compound, its polished surface shining like a mirror. Gasps rose from neighbors as they stepped back to make way. The door opened and out stepped Kobe Adeyemi himself, dressed in a dark suit, his eyes shadowed. The compound fell silent. Mothers paused and their cooking children froze mid-game. Even the chickens seemed to hush. All eyes turned to the billionaire who had accused their own of theft. Amara's chest tightened. She stood slowly, her jaw set, her eyes blazing with anger. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was low but sharp enough to cut glass. Kobe cleared his throat. For once his arrogance seemed to falter. "Amara, I came to apologize." Amara raised her hand sharply. "Stop right there. Did I not warn you to stay away from my family? Haven't you done enough damage? You humiliated me, dragged me in handcuffs before my neighbors destroyed my name. And now you appear here in your fine car to say sorry." Her voice rang across the compound. Neighbors murmured, nodding in agreement. Kobe's shoulders sagged. "I know words are not enough. I misjudged you, Amara. I believed lies. I can't undo what I did, but I want to make things right." "Make things right?" Amara's laughter was bitter. "By what? By throwing money in my face? By offering me scraps from your rich man's table?" Kobe swallowed hard. "Not scraps. From today, I want you to work directly in my mansion. You will manage the household. I will pay you 5 times what you earn. Your family will never suffer again." Gasps rippled through the neighbors. To them, such an offer was golden. But Amara's face hardened. "So this is why you came, to insult me again? You think dignity is for sale? You believe poverty makes us desperate enough to forget pain?" Her voice rose. "I would rather scrub 1,000 floors for strangers than work in the house where I was branded a thief. Keep your money, Mr. Adeyemi. Keep your mansion. Keep your pride. We don't need it." Her words struck him like whips. For the first time, Kobe's lips trembled. His chest rose and fell too fast. He opened his mouth, but no words came. His vision blurred. Suddenly his eyes rolled back. With a heavy thud, he collapsed onto the dusty ground. Cries of shock filled the compound. Jesu Ogadon faint neighbors rushed forward, some grabbing water, others shouting for help. Amara froze, her anger melting into fear. "Oh God, he is dying." She dropped to her knees beside him, pressing her hand to his chest. His skin was clammy, sweat dripping from his brow. "Quick, call a car. Take him to the hospital," a man shouted. Within minutes, Kobe was lifted into the SUV, Amara climbing in beside him despite herself. As the vehicle sped through the crowded streets toward Lagos General Hospital, her hands trembled. She had sworn never to see him again, yet here she was whispering prayers over the very man who had crushed her. At the hospital, nurses rushed him onto a stretcher. Machines beeped. Drips were attached, blood pressure taken. Amara stood frozen at the doorway, her heart hammering. After what felt like hours, a doctor stepped out. He was tall with gentle eyes and introduced himself as Dr. Hassan. His voice was firm. Madam, your employer suffered a severe collapse. His kidneys are failing. If we don't act fast, he will not survive. Amara's breath caught. Failing, you mean he will die? The doctor nodded gravely. He has days, perhaps less, unless we find a compatible donor for transplant. At that moment, the doors burst open. Viola swept in her heels, clicking against the tiles, face painted with panic. Where is he? Where is my baby? She wailed, rushing toward the ward. The nurses held her back. Dr. Hassan explained the situation calmly. Madam, his life depends on a kidney transplant. We need to test close relatives, and of course you, since you claim to be his fiancé. Viola's face changed instantly. Me, test me. No, I cannot, doctor, find someone else. Do you want me to die on an operating table? No way. Dr. Hassan frowned. But madam, you said you love him. This is your chance to prove it. Viola folded her arms, scoffing. Love doesn't mean I should cut myself open. That man is stingy. Let him use his millions to buy a kidney elsewhere. I am too young and beautiful to risk my life. The doctor's jaw tightened. Madam, without a donor, he will not survive. Viola hissed. That is your problem, not mine. She turned her perfume trailing as she stormed out. Amara's fists clenched. Her heart swirled with emotions she couldn't name. This was the woman Kobe trusted, the one he chose over everyone else. Yet when faced with his life, she abandoned him. Tears burned Amara's eyes. She stepped forward, her voice trembling. Doctor, if it will save him, test me. I will give my kidney. Dr. Hassan's eyes widened. Young lady, do you understand what you are saying? He accused you, humiliated you, and yet you are ready to risk your life. Amara nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't know why, doctor. I should hate him. I should leave him to die. But something in me, I cannot watch him die like this. Please test me. If I am a match, take it. Save him. The doctor sighed deeply. It is not that simple. We will run tests tomorrow morning. If you are compatible, we will proceed. But I must warn you, this surgery is dangerous. Amara's lips trembled, but she whispered, Danger is nothing compared to watching someone die before your eyes. She turned her eyes, meeting Kobe's pale face through the glass window of the ward. His chest rose and fell weakly, his body fragile. And for the first time since the nightmare began, she realized her heart was no longer only angry. Somewhere beneath the ashes of humiliation, a strange new fire had begun to burn. The following morning dawned gray over Lagos, the sky heavy with clouds that promised rain. In the bustling streets of Mushin, vendors shouted over one another, but inside the Nwosu home, there was only silence. Amara sat on the edge of her mat, staring at her hands. They trembled as she remembered her own words at the hospital the night before. Test me. If I am a match, take my kidney. Ngozi, her mother, stood in the corner, with arms folded across her chest, worry etched deep into her face. She had not slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her daughter lying on a hospital bed cut open. Finally, she broke the silence. My child, what madness has entered your heart? After everything this man did to you, you want to risk your life for him. Amara swallowed hard, unable to meet her mother's eyes. Mama, I know it sounds foolish. He disgraced me, he dragged me into the dirt. But when I saw him on that hospital bed, I couldn't just walk away. If he dies, people will say I cursed him, that my anger killed him. And besides, her voice faltered, I think I don't hate him anymore. Ngozi's hands flew to her head. Chine, have you lost your senses? This is the same man who called you a thief, who put you behind bars, and now you speak as if you care for him. Tears filled Amara's eyes. I don't understand it myself, Mama, but something in me wants to help him. Maybe God is testing me. Maybe he wants me to show mercy even to someone who wronged me. Chidi, who had been listening quietly, suddenly burst out, Sister, no, don't do it. What if something happens to you? What if you die? His young voice cracked with fear. He threw his arms around her waist, clinging tightly. Amara hugged him back, her own tears spilling. I will not die, Chidi. God will protect me, and if I can save a life, maybe he will bless us in return. Ngozi shook her head, her voice breaking. My daughter, your heart is too soft. But if this is truly what you want, I cannot chain you. I can only pray God guides you. The next morning, Amara returned to Lagos General Hospital. The corridors buzzed with activity nurses pushing trolleys, doctors flipping through files, families whispering prayers in waiting rooms. She was led to a small examination room where Dr. Hassan greeted her with a tired smile. Are you sure about this, Amara? He asked. You can still change your mind. Amara nodded firmly, though her stomach twisted with fear. Do the test, doctor. If I am a match, I will give him my kidney. The tests were long blood samples, scans, questions about her health. By evening, she returned home exhausted. She lay awake that night, staring at the cracked ceiling, whispering prayers that, whatever happened, her family would survive. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Kobe lay in his bed, his body weak but his mind racing. He had heard whispers from the nurses about Biola refusing the test, about Amara offering to donate. His chest ached with shame. How could she, after all I did to her? He closed his eyes, but sleep refused him. Biola, on the other hand, had vanished. She had switched off her phone, her laughter echoing in clubs, miles away, drinking and dancing as if nothing had happened. To her, Kobe's sickness was merely an inconvenience, something to be shrugged off. The following morning, Dr. Hassan entered Kobe's ward with a file in hand. Mr. Adeyemi, he said gravely, we have a potential donor. Kobe's eyes widened. Who? The doctor hesitated. Amara Nwosu. The young woman you accused? Kobe felt as though the ground had slipped beneath him. Amara, no, she cannot, after everything. Dr. Hassan placed a hand on his shoulder. She is a strong match. If she agrees, we can save you. But the decision is hers. Kobe turned his face away, tears stinging his eyes for the first time in years. She is better than me, he thought. I destroyed her, yet she is willing to save me. That afternoon, Amara returned for the results. Dr. Hassan looked at her steadily. Amara, you are a match. The surgery can save him, but it is risky for you. Are you certain? Her heart pounded, but she lifted her chin. Yes, do it. Outside, the ward whispers spread among the staff. Nurses shook their heads in disbelief. The poor girl he humiliated is ready to save him. And his fiancée, she abandoned him. That evening, as Amara sat in the waiting area, Ngozi arrived, clutching her wrapper tightly. Her face was pale, her steps unsteady. My daughter, she whispered, if you do this, promise me one thing: you will fight to live. Do not leave me and Chitty alone. Amara hugged her mother fiercely. I promise, Mama. Inside his room, Kobe asked for Amara. When she entered, her steps were slow, her eyes guarded. He looked weaker than she had ever seen him, his arrogance stripped away. Amara, he whispered, his voice hoarse, why would you save me after all I did? She hesitated, then answered softly, because if I don't, I will become like you, someone who lets pride kill mercy, and I refuse to be that person. Tears slipped down Kobe's face. I don't deserve your kindness. No, Amara said firmly. You don't. But mercy is not about who deserves it. Their eyes locked, a strange silence filling the room. For the first time, Kobe felt the weight of humility pressing down on him, and it was heavier than any fortune he had ever carried. That night, as rain finally poured over Lagos, washing the dust from the streets, Amara lay awake in her hospital bed waiting for the surgery, scheduled the next day. Ngozi sat beside her, praying softly while Chidi clutched his sister's hand, refusing to let go. And somewhere deep inside, Amara whispered to herself, God, if this is your test, let me pass it. Not for Kobe's sake, but for my own soul. The rain had washed Lagos clean by morning. Streets that had been dusty and hot the day before now glistened under a pale Sunday. At Lagos General Hospital, the air was thick with anticipation. Nurses moved quickly between wards and relatives clasped their hands in prayer. Inside one room, Amara sat upright on her bed, dressed in a hospital gown. Her heart pounded like a talking drum. Today was the day. Ngozi sat by her side, holding her daughter's hand tightly, whispering prayers in Igbo under her breath. Chukwu, Gozi Nym. May the Lord protect my child. Beside them, Chidi crouched on a small chair, too afraid to speak. His eyes wide and wet, never left his sister's face. A knock at the door startled them. It was Dr. Hassan holding a clipboard. He smiled warmly, but his eyes carried the gravity of the moment. Amara, we are ready. The tests confirm you are the best match. If you are still willing, we will proceed with the transplant today. Amara drew in a shaky breath, then nodded. Yes, doctor, I am ready. Ngozi tightened her grip. My daughter, please remember your promise. Fight to live. Do not leave me and your brother. Amara leaned forward, resting her forehead against her mother's. I will fight, Mama. I promise. Meanwhile, in a private ward across the corridor, Kobe lay pale and silent. His usually sharp eyes were dull, his face gaunt. For a man who had commanded boardrooms and silenced entire staff, with one look he now seemed fragile like a child. He had heard that Amara was a match, that she was willing to risk her life for him. The knowledge pressed on him heavier than his illness. When Dr. Hassan entered, Kobe turned his face toward the wall. Why is she doing this? After what I did to her? The doctor studied him carefully. Maybe because her heart is bigger than yours, Mr. Adeyemi. Maybe she understands something you never did, that true strength is shown in mercy. Kobe closed his eyes, guilt burning through him. If she dies because of this, I will never forgive myself. Then live, Dr. Hassan said quietly. Live in a way that honors her sacrifice. The preparation for surgery began swiftly. Nurses wheeled Amara into the cold, sterile operating theater. As the lights above her face flickered on, fear clenched her stomach. She whispered a final prayer, God, keep me safe. If I must bleed, let it bring healing. Across the hall, Kobe was wheeled in as well. For a brief moment, their stretchers crossed in the corridor. Their eyes met hers, full of trembling courage, his full of regret. Neither spoke, but the silence between them carried more than words could hold. The surgery lasted hours. Outside the theater, Ngozi knelt on the cold floor, praying aloud, her voice breaking. Chidi knelt beside her, clutching her wrapper. Neighbors who had heard of the ordeal gathered too, whispering prayers. Even Kunle, the security guard who had saved the recording of Biola's confession, arrived at the hospital. He sat quietly, clutching his phone like a weapon of truth, ready for the day it would be needed. Finally, as evening painted the sky orange, the doors opened. Dr. Hassan emerged, his gown, stained his face, weary but smiling. She made it, he announced. The surgery was successful. Both patients are stable. Ngozi burst into tears of relief, collapsing to the floor in gratitude. Chidi jumped up, shouting, Thank you, Jesus, my sister is alive. In the recovery room, Amara opened her eyes slowly. Pain rippled through her body, but she was alive. At her side, Ngozi held her hand, tears streaming down her face. My child, she whispered, you are stronger than I ever knew. Amara's lips trembled into a faint smile. Mama, is he alive too? Yes, Dr. Hassan replied gently. He owes his life to you now. Across the hall, Kobe awoke as well. The first thing he saw was the white ceiling, then the IV drip beside his bed. But the weight in his chest was not from the surgery, it was from the truth. He had been saved by the very woman he had destroyed. His heart ached with shame. 2 days later, Amara was strong enough to sit up. Nurses helped her into a wheelchair, and Dr. Hassan insisted she be taken to Kobe's ward for a brief visit. At first she resisted, but something in her heart told her it was time. When the door opened, Kobe was sitting up, his face still pale, but his eyes clear. He froze when he saw her, struggling to find words. Finally, he whispered Amara. She lifted her chin. Mr. Adeyemi. Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unspoken. Then Kobe swung his legs off the bed, ignoring the pain, and dropped to his knees on the cold floor. Nurses gasped. A billionaire kneeling before a poor cleaner. Forgive me, he said, his voice breaking. I accused you, I humiliated you, I put you in a cell. I don't deserve your mercy, yet you gave me life. I was blind, arrogant, and cruel. If you never wish to see me again, I will understand. But please know that I am sorry. Amara's throat tightened. She had imagined this moment many times, but never like this. The proud man she had despised now knelt like a broken child. For a moment she wanted to spit her anger to remind him of every wound. But instead she whispered, I forgave you the moment I agreed to the surgery, not for your sake but for mine. I refuse to let bitterness destroy me. Kobe lifted his head, his eyes glistening. You are stronger than I will ever be. Just then the door burst open. Biola stormed in her heels, striking the tiles like drum beats. She froze when she saw Amara beside Kobe's bed. Her eyes blazed. What is she doing here? Have you forgotten? She is nothing but a poor house girl. Kobe rose to his feet, slowly leaning on the bed for support. His voice was firm, sharper than steel. Biola, do not call her that again. She is the reason I am alive. You, on the other hand, abandoned me when I needed you most. Biola scoffed. Abandon you? I am not a fool, Kobe. Do you expect me to risk my life for you? And now you insult me because of this girl. Kobe's jaw tightened. Yes, because she showed me true love. Love that sacrifices. You showed me greed and lies. We are finished, Biola. Leave. Biola's face flushed red. You will regret this. You think she is better than me. She will disappoint you just like I did. She hissed at Amara before storming out. The room fell quiet. Kobe turned back to Amara. I don't know how to repay you. Money is nothing compared to what you gave me. Tell me what you want, and it is yours. Amara's eyes hardened. What I want is not money, Mr. Adeyemi. What I want is justice. Clear my name fully. Let everyone know I was innocent, and change, truly change. Because if you remain the man you were, then my sacrifice was wasted. Kobe nodded slowly, his chest tight. I will clear your name, and I will change Amara. For the first time in my life, I want to. As she wheeled herself out of the ward, Amara felt something shift inside her. She did not trust him yet, but she had seen the crack in his armor. And through that crack, perhaps light could enter. The news of Kobe Adeyemi's collapse and miraculous recovery spread quickly across Lagos. Newspapers carried headlines like "Billionaire Saved by Poor Cleaner Sacrifice" and "Ikoyi Tycoon Humbled in Mushin." For the first time, Kobe's name was not just tied to wealth, arrogance, and business empires, but also to shame and redemption. In Mushin, neighbors crowded outside the Nwosu compound, buzzing with curiosity. Some came to congratulate Ngozi and Amara, praising her bravery. Others whispered bitterly, "She is foolish. Why risk her life for a man who destroyed her name?" But Ngozi held her head high. She had nearly lost her daughter, and no gossip could dim the relief she felt. 3 days after the surgery, Kobe arrived at the compound again. This time not in arrogance, but leaning on a walking stick, his driver and bodyguard helping him. His steps were slow, his face pale, but his eyes were softer than anyone had ever seen. He had asked permission from Dr. Hassan to be discharged early, just to make this visit. The neighbors gathered in shock. The billionaire has returned to Mushin. Mothers tugged their children close. Men folded their arms and watched carefully. Some expected another humiliation, but others felt something different in the air. Kobe stood at the center of the dusty courtyard, his fine suit splattered with mud from the street. He cleared his throat, and the chatter died. He turned toward Ngozi, who stood by the doorway, arms folded protectively around Amara, still weak but upright on her stool. "Mama Ngozi," Kobe said, bowing slightly. The crowd gasped, a rich man bowing in Mushin. "I came to ask forgiveness. I wronged your daughter. I accused her falsely. I dragged her dignity through the mud. Yet she gave me life when I least deserved it. I came to kneel before you and before this community to say I was wrong." And then, to the astonishment of all, he dropped to his knees in the dust. His expensive trousers stained instantly, but he did not care. He raised his hands slightly, like a man begging at the altar. "Amara Nwosu," his voice cracked, "I cannot undo the pain I caused you. But I can live differently from today. I owe you more than my life. I owe you my soul." The crowd murmured. Some wiped their eyes, moved by the sight. Others shook their heads in disbelief. But Amara, her body trembling, stood slowly with Chidi's help. Her gaze pierced him like fire. "You think kneeling will erase what you did?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. "You threw me into a cell without proof. You called me a thief before my neighbors. My mother wept until her eyes swelled. My brother suffered in shame. Do you know how it feels to be innocent and yet branded guilty?" Kobe's lips trembled. "I know now. And I will spend the rest of my days clearing your name, lifting your family, and changing who I am. If you never forgive me, I will understand. But please allow me the chance to prove I can be different." The silence that followed was thick. Finally, Amara shook her head slowly. "I do not trust you, not yet, but I will not carry hate in my heart. I have already forgiven you, though I cannot forget. If you truly want to prove yourself, then let your actions speak." The crowd erupted in applause, some crying out, "Amen, she has spoken truth." Even the neighbors who had doubted her before now looked at Amara with new respect. Later that evening, as the crowd dispersed, Kobe remained in the compound with his driver and bodyguard. He insisted on speaking privately with Ngozi and Amara. From a leather briefcase, he pulled out thick documents. "This," he said, "is the official letter clearing Amara's record with the police. I have spoken directly to the commissioner. Her name is clean again. No one will ever call her a thief." Ngozi's eyes filled with tears. She took the document with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Kobe continued, his voice steady. "And this," he produced another file, "is a scholarship fund in Amara's name. You will return to school, Amara. You left your studies because of hardship, but no more. I will sponsor your education to any level you wish. If you want a business tomorrow, I will invest. Not because I pity you, but because you deserve more than the world gave you." Amara blinked, stunned. She glanced at her mother, then at Chidi, whose face lit up with awe. "You want to send me back to school?" "Yes," Kobe said. "And your brother too. Chidi will have the chance to study anywhere he dreams. I want to give back what I tried to take from you, your future." Ngozi clasped her hands, whispering prayers of gratitude, but Amara's voice was still cautious. "Money cannot buy trust, Mr. Adeyemi. You think of generosity as a key to hearts, but dignity cannot be bought. If you truly mean these things, then walk humbly, not just before me, but before everyone. Let your wealth serve people, not enslave them." Kobe lowered his head. "I will try." That night, as he left Mushin, the streets echoed with conversations. Did you see the rich man kneel? Did you see how Amara stood firm? The story spread like wildfire, the billionaire humbled before the poor cleaner he once destroyed. But in the quiet of his mansion in Ikoyi, Kobe sat alone, his thoughts restless. Biola's betrayal still burned him. She had vanished completely, leaving debts behind at luxury boutiques. His pride had been shattered, his reputation bruised. Yet strangely, he felt lighter. For the first time in years, he had looked at his own reflection and seen not a king, but a man. The next morning, he called Kunle, the loyal guard. Do you still have the recording? Yes, Oga, Kunle said, showing the file on his phone. Biola confessed with her own mouth. Kobe's jaw tightened. Submit it to the authorities. Let the law deal with her. She will not escape. Kunle nodded. Oga, this one will spread. People will know the truth. And they must, Kobe replied. Not for my sake, but for Amara's. The world must know she was innocent. Meanwhile, at the Nwosu home, life began to shift. For the first time in years, there was hope. Chidi clutched his books with renewed energy, dreaming of secondary school. Ngozi's eyes seemed brighter, her laughter returning slowly. And Amara, though still weak from surgery, felt a new strength rising within her. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, Kobe returned once more. This time he came without bodyguards, without a convoy, only himself dressed simply in a shirt and trousers. He sat with the family outside sharing roasted corn from a roadside cellar, something he had never done in his life. Do you know, he said softly, I have eaten in 5-star restaurants across Europe, but nothing tastes as sweet as this. Amara glanced at him suspicious, but she saw no mockery in his eyes. Only sincerity. She smiled faintly. Perhaps because this is food shared with humility, not pride. He nodded. Perhaps. The night grew still. Somewhere in the distance, drums echoed from a church revival, mixing with the calls of hawkers. And in that simple moment under the Lagos sky, a strange new chapter began, not one of wealth and arrogance, but of rebuilding, of slow trust, and of the fragile, tentative possibility of love. The days that followed brought a different rhythm to both Mushin and Ikoyi. For Mushin, life moved on with its usual struggles, hawkers calling out wares, buses packed with sweating bodies, children darting through alleys barefoot. But for the Nwosu family, the air felt lighter. Amara's name had been cleared, the shame lifted. Each time neighbors greeted her now, it was not with suspicion, but with admiration. Nah, that girl way saved billionaire life, some whispered. She get heart way past gold. Others came to her door with quiet apologies. One old woman, who had once spat on the ground when Amara was arrested, brought a basket of roasted plantains as a peace offering. Amara accepted with grace, though her heart still carried scars. Meanwhile, in Ikoyi, Kobe sat in his office overlooking the glittering skyline. His businesses ran smoothly, but his mind was elsewhere. For the first time in years, money felt small in his hands. He kept remembering the moment Amara had whispered, "Mercy is not about who deserves it." Those words echoed louder than any boardroom applause. Dr. Hassan visited him often for checkups, and each time the doctor reminded him, "Your health is stable now, but remember, this second chance was not bought. It was given. Live wisely." One evening, restless Kobe drove himself back to Mushin without telling his driver. He arrived in his SUV, but instead of parking at the edge of the street, he turned into the compound and stepped out, surprising everyone. Amara was seated outside helping Chidi with his homework. Ngozi was sorting beans into a bowl. The air grew tense. Neighbors peeped from their windows. Kobe approached slowly, his hands visible, no arrogance in his stride. "Good evening," he said softly. Ngozi stood suspicious but polite. "Good evening, Oga Adeyemi." Kobe cleared his throat. "Please, don't call me Oga. Just Kobe. I came not as a rich man, but as a man who wants to learn." Amara looked up, her eyes wary. "Learn what?" Kobe's gaze shifted to Chidi, who clutched his pencil tightly, staring at him in awe. Then back to Amara. "Learn how to live without pride. Learn what it means to be human again." Amara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Those are heavy words, Mr. Adeyemi. Words are easy. Change is hard." "I know," Kobe admitted. "That's why I want to show you, not just tell you." The days turned into weeks. True to his word, Kobe began to act differently. He created a program called Hands That Clean, a foundation providing healthcare and scholarships for cleaners and domestic workers across Lagos. He invited Amara to speak at its opening. Standing on the podium in a simple Ankara dress, Amara told her story, how she was accused, shamed, and nearly destroyed, but also how truth and mercy prevailed. The audience made of workers who had felt invisible all their lives clapped until their hands burned. At the same event, Kobe publicly declared, "This foundation is built in honor of Amara Nwosu, who showed me that dignity is worth more than wealth." Reporters flashed cameras and headlines the next day, carried Amara's name alongside his. Biola, however, did not disappear quietly. Arrest warrants had been issued after Kunle's recording was handed to the police, but she had fled Lagos. She appeared in Abuja attending lavish parties with borrowed money, her arrogance unshaken. But the law had a long arm, and sooner or later her deceit would catch up with her. Back in Mushin, life blossomed. Chidi received news of a scholarship, his eyes shining as he hugged Amara. "Sister, I will go to school like other children. Maybe one day I will be a lawyer. I will fight for people like us." Ngozi's health also improved. With Kobe quietly covering her medical bills, the constant worry that had bent her back seemed to ease. She smiled more, laughed more, and neighbors whispered that she looked younger than she had in years. But for Amara, trust was still fragile. She accepted Kobe's help, but kept her heart guarded. Each time he visited bringing books for Chidi or food for the family, she welcomed him politely, but never with warmth. Kobe understood. He did not rush. He simply showed up again and again with humility. One evening, the sky painted pink with sunset. Kobe sat with Amara outside her home. Children played football nearby, their laughter echoing. He turned to her quietly. "Amara, I have apologized many times, but I must say it again, not because I expect you to forgive me instantly, but because I need to remind myself of the man I once was. I was blind with pride. You gave me life, but more than that, you gave me the chance to start again. I don't want to waste it." Amara studied his face, searching for arrogance, but found only sincerity. She sighed. "Kobe, you are changing, yes. But forgiveness is not a door that swings open at once. It is a journey. And trust. Trust must be rebuilt brick by brick. Are you ready for that?" "Yes," he said simply, "even if it takes a lifetime." They sat in silence, the sound of distant drums rising from a church nearby. For the first time, Amara allowed herself a small smile in his presence. It was not love, not yet, but it was something, perhaps the beginning of healing. Later that night, after Kobe had left, Ngozi turned to her daughter. "Amara, I see the way you look at him now. Do not harden your heart forever. Sometimes God uses strange roads to bring people into our lives." Amara shook her head slowly. "Mama, I don't know what my heart feels. But I know this, if he truly changes, it will not just be for me. It will be for himself, for his soul." The days continued. Kobe began selling some of his luxury cars, donating the proceeds to build wells in poor communities. He visited schools, sat on dusty benches beside children, and ate with them. Photos of him doing so spread across social media. Some mocked him, saying he was pretending, but others saw a man humbled, transformed by the mercy of a poor cleaner. One Sunday, Amara and her family attended church. The pastor, having heard their story, preached about forgiveness and pride. Pride destroys the rich and poor alike, but forgiveness builds bridges money cannot buy. As the congregation clapped, Amara bowed, her head tears slipping down her cheeks. She still felt the sting of humiliation, but she also felt the weight of bitterness lifting. That evening, Kobe visited again. This time he did not come empty-handed. He brought a simple, carved wooden stool. "I had this made for you," he said shyly. "It is strong but plain, like you. It reminds me that true strength doesn't need gold or marble." Amara touched the stool, surprised. It was not the gift of a rich man flaunting wealth, but of someone learning humility. She smiled faintly. "Thank you, Kobe. Maybe there is hope for you, after all." And in that small smile, under the fading Lagos sun, something shifted. Not yet love, not yet trust, but the fragile seed of possibility planted in the dust, watered by sacrifice, and perhaps one day ready to bloom. The transformation of Kobe Adeyemi did not happen overnight, but Lagos had eyes everywhere. The once untouchable billionaire who never lowered his gaze to the poor was now seen walking the streets of Mushin with only Kunle by his side, stopping to greet elders, buying roasted maize from hawkers, and even sitting in small kiosks, share a bottle of Fanta with strangers. Some believed it was all for show, a performance to win back reputation. But others, especially those in Mushin, saw something different, humility that could not be faked. One afternoon, Kobe returned to the hospital for a follow-up with Dr. Hassan. After the examination, the doctor leaned against his desk and studied him closely. "You are healing well," Dr. Hassan said. "But tell me, Mr. Adeyemi, are you also healing here?" He tapped his chest gently. Kobe's eyes dropped. I am trying. But guilt does not heal as quickly as flesh. Then let your guilt guide you, Dr. Hassan replied. Let it remind you of who you never want to be again. On his way out, Kobe noticed a group of cleaners mopping the hospital floor, where once he would have walked past them as though invisible, he paused, greeted them, and handed them envelopes containing stipends from his foundation. One woman began to cry, saying, "Nobody ever sees us. You see us today." Kobe walked away with wet eyes, realizing that each small act was also healing him. But the storm of Biola Karim had not yet passed. Weeks after vanishing, she resurfaced in Abuja, dressed in glittering gowns, hosting parties with money that was not hers. But Kunli's recording had already been filed with the police, and her face appeared on wanted posters across the state. One humid evening, she was spotted in a nightclub, bragging loudly about her connections. Before she could slip away, officers surrounded her. "You are under arrest for theft, fraud, and obstruction of justice," the lead officer declared. Biola laughed bitterly. "Do you know who I am? I am the future wife of Kobe Adeyemi." The officer smirked. "Not anymore. Even he wants justice for you." The news spread like wildfire. Biola, once the darling of high society, was led away in handcuffs. Newspapers carried images of her face twisted in rage, her expensive wig askew. For many it was proof that no amount of beauty or arrogance could escape the truth. Back in Mushin, Amara heard the news from a neighbor's transistor radio. Her stomach tightened. She remembered Biola's cruel words at the mansion gates. "Your daughter is a thief. She will rot in prison." Now it was Biola's turn to face the same bars. But Amara felt no joy, only a quiet reminder that life had a way of turning tables. That evening, Kobe arrived at the Nwosu home once more. This time he came with a small entourage of journalists and community leaders. The neighbors gathered quickly, filling the compound with noise. Standing in the center, Kobe raised his hand for silence. His voice carried across the courtyard. "Today I stand before you, not as the man who accused Amara Nosu, but as the man who owes her his life. She saved me when I did not deserve saving. She forgave me when I had crushed her dignity. And because of her, I have learned that wealth means nothing without humility and respect." He gestured toward Kunle, who stepped forward nervously, holding a small USB drive. "This man, my guard, recorded the truth. Biola Karim was the thief. The money was never missing because of Amara. She was innocent all along." Gasps rippled through the crowd. People turned to Amara, clapping, cheering, and some even kneeling before her. For once, her name was not stained by shame, but lifted by honor. Tears filled Ngozi's eyes as she clasped her daughter's hand. Kobe continued, his voice heavy with conviction. "From this day, I pledge to support the cleaners, the laborers, the invisible workers of this city. My wealth will serve not just me, but those who keep Lagos alive. And I begin here with Amara's family. I will rebuild this compound, provide education for every child here, and create jobs that treat workers with dignity." The crowd erupted in cheers. Some shouted, "God bless you," others danced, clapping their hands. Children ran barefoot laughing, while elders raised their palms to the sky in prayer. Amara stood quietly through it all, her face calm but unreadable. When the noise settled, she stepped forward. Her voice, though soft, silenced the crowd. "Kobe Adeyemi, you speak well, but words are easy. Time will show if your change is true. For now I accept your apology not because I trust you, but because holding anger will only poison me. Do good not just for me, but for all who cannot fight for themselves." The compound roared in agreement. That night after the journalist left, Amara sat outside under the stars. The air was cooler, the dust of the day settled. She hugged her knees to her chest, her mind heavy. She thought of Biola in prison, of Kobe kneeling in the dirt, of the children in her community who might one day dream bigger because of the foundation. Kobe joined her quietly, sitting a short distance away on the new wooden stool he had gifted her. For a while, neither spoke. Then he said softly, "Amara, you don't know what you've done for me. You didn't just save my life. You saved my soul." She looked at him, her eyes still cautious but softer now. "Kobe, I did what I thought was right. But don't mistake that for love. My heart is not ready for you." He nodded. "I understand. I will wait. Not to win you, but to earn the right to stand beside you, even if it takes a lifetime." A long silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of distant drums from a night vigil. Amara turned her gaze back to the stars, and for the first time she felt a strange calm. Perhaps God's hand was weaving something greater than she could yet see. The next morning, construction workers arrived in Mushin with tools and cement ready to rebuild the crumbling compound. Children followed them, shouting in excitement. Women clapped, singing praise songs. And at the center of it all, Amara stood tall, not as a victim, but as a survivor, whose dignity had not been broken but reborn. For Kobe, it was the first step in a journey of redemption that would stretch far beyond Mushin. But for Amara, it was the reminder that forgiveness was possible, trust could be rebuilt, and dignity was a flame no accusation could extinguish. And so under the bright Lagos sun, a new chapter began of justice, served of hearts humbled, and of a fragile but powerful hope that wealth and poverty, pride and humility could one day stand side by side. The following weeks unfolded like a slow dawn after a long storm. The scandal of Biola Karim's arrest dominated Lagos headlines. Talk shows replayed clips of her being led in handcuffs, her face twisted with rage. Many laughed at her fall from grace, calling it the justice of heaven. Others whispered warnings, reminding themselves how quickly arrogance could turn to ashes. But in Mushin, life bloomed in ways no one expected. The sound of hammers and saws echoed across the compound as construction workers rebuilt the Nwosu home. Walls that had been cracked and leaking were replaced with solid bricks. The leaky zinc roof was torn down, replaced with sturdy sheets that shone in the sunlight. Children followed the workers, their laughter rising like music above the pounding tools. One evening, as the workers packed up, Amara stood outside watching the walls of her home rise. Her chest swelled with conflicting emotions, gratitude for the help, but also caution. She had promised herself she would not let Kobe's wealth make her family beholden. Yet she could not deny the relief of knowing her mother and brother would no longer sleep under a leaking roof. Ngozi touched her daughter's shoulder. Amara, my child, sometimes God uses even the hands of those who once hurt us to bless us. Do not fight every blessing. Receive it with wisdom. Amara nodded slowly, though her heart still guarded itself. Kobe, meanwhile, had become a regular presence in Mushin, but unlike before, he did not arrive in flashy convoys. He often came quietly, sometimes even dressed simply in a shirt and jeans. He sat with elders, listened to their complaints, and promised to repair broken boreholes and sponsor health clinics. One Saturday, the community gathered for the launch of his foundation's first official project, free medical checkups for cleaners and street vendors. Hundreds came lining up in the Sunday. Doctors in white coats examined children, treated coughs, and distributed medicines. Kobe stood at the edge of the field watching the joy unfold. But when journalists approached him for comments, he waved them away. "This is not for cameras," he said. "This is for people." That same afternoon, Amara found herself on the stage of a small church, invited to give a testimony. She stood nervously before the congregation, her hands trembling. "I was accused of theft," she began, her voice steadying. "I was shamed before my neighbors. But God vindicated me, and more than that, He gave me the strength to forgive. I do not say this because it was easy. It was the hardest thing I have ever done. But I learned that carrying anger is like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. Forgiveness freed me more than it freed him." The congregation erupted in applause, some in tears. Amara stepped down from the podium, her heart lighter than it had been in months. But her journey with Kobe was not without its challenges. One evening he arrived with papers in hand. "Amara, I want to invest in you directly. You have always worked for others. Let me help you start your own cleaning company, Nozu Home Care. You will employ others, manage contracts, and build something that is yours." Amara stared at the documents, her lips pressed tight. "Why are you doing this, Kobe? Is it guilt, or are you trying to buy forgiveness?" Kobe met her gaze firmly. "Neither. I am doing this because I believe in you, because you deserve to rise, and because I want to be a different man, not one who destroys, but one who builds." She hesitated for a long moment. Then quietly she said, "If I accept this, it will be on my terms. No ownership, no control from you. I will run it my way." Kobe nodded without hesitation. "Your way." And so Nwosu Home Care was born. Within weeks, Amara had recruited women from Mushin widows, single mothers, and struggling students. She trained them, paying fair wages, and soon her company was cleaning offices across the city. For the first time, Amara felt the pride of building something of her own. One afternoon, as she inspected her small office, Chidi burst in, waving a paper. "Sister, look." It was his acceptance letter into a prestigious secondary school in Lagos. His eyes shone with excitement. "I will study hard, I promise. One day I will be a lawyer and fight for people like us." Amara hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, Chidi. One day you will." But amid the joy, her heart still wrestled with questions about Kobe. He visited often, sometimes sharing meals, sometimes helping with Chidi's homework. Yet Amara kept a distance, afraid of the emotions stirring within her. One evening under the golden glow of sunset, Kobe sat beside her outside their new home. The air was filled with the sound of children's laughter and the faint rhythm of drums from a distant party. He spoke softly. "Amara, I know I can never erase the past, but I want to build a future not just for myself but with people who keep me grounded, people like you." She looked at him, her heart conflicted. "Kobe, you talk of futures, but trust is not built in weeks. It takes years. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you." "I understand," he said gently. "Then let me earn it one day at a time. I am not asking for your heart now. I am only asking for the chance to walk beside you." Amara sighed, staring at the sky. "We will walk, Kobe, but only step by step. If your change is real, time will prove it." For the first time, Kobe smiled, not the arrogant smirk he once wore, but a genuine, humble smile. "Step by step," he echoed. That night, as Amara lay on her mat, she whispered a prayer. Not for wealth, not for romance, but for wisdom. She prayed that God would guide her steps, that her heart would not be deceived, and that Kobe's change would last beyond the shadows of guilt. In Mushin, the people began to tell her story like a folktale around fires. The rich man accused the poor girl, but in the end, the poor girl saved the rich man and taught him humility. Children listened, wide-eyed elders nodded gravely, and everyone agreed wealth may buy power, but only character wins respect. And in Ikoyi, the once proud billionaire sat alone on his balcony watching the city lights. For the first time in his life, he did not feel lonely. Somewhere in Mushin, a woman he did not deserve had given him hope. And that hope, fragile but steady, was enough to keep him walking forward step by step. Months rolled by, and Lagos continued to hum with its endless rhythm. In Mushin, the Nwosu family's life had taken on a new light. The once leaking shack was now a proper home with strong walls, and the small compound bustled with activity. Amara's new company, Nwosu Home Care, was flourishing. Women from the neighborhood, those who had once scoffed at her, now worked under her leadership, proud to wear the uniform she provided. For the first time in her life, Amara was not just surviving, she was leading. Kobe kept his promise to remain present but humble. He did not flash his wealth or demand recognition. Instead, he quietly funded boreholes, supported schools, and even sat in small Mushin meetings, listening to concerns about broken roads or sanitation. At first, the people thought it was a trick, but as months passed, they began to believe this man had truly changed. Still, Amara kept her heart cautious. She admired his efforts, but every time she looked at him, memories of humiliation still tugged at her chest. Forgiveness was one thing, but trust was another. She would not give her heart easily, not even to a man reborn. One evening, a community celebration was held in the new hall Kobe had helped build. Women danced and bright Ankara drums pounded, and the smell of jollof rice and fried fish filled the air. Amara was called to the stage to speak as the director of her company. She stood tall, her voice steady. "I was once accused of theft. My name was dragged through the mud. But God raised me again, not because of my strength, but because the truth cannot stay buried forever. Today, I lead women like me, women who know what it is to be invisible. Together, we will show that dignity is stronger than poverty." The crowd erupted in cheers. Kobe, standing at the back, clapped quietly, his eyes fixed on her. To him, she was no longer just the girl who saved his life. She was the woman who had changed his world. But the night held more than celebration. In the middle of the festivities, a group of journalists cornered Kobe with questions. "Mr. Adeyemi, is it true you and Miss Nosu are now a couple? Will the billionaire marry the poor cleaner who saved him?" The whispers spread like wildfire. Amara overheard, her face tightening. Later, she confronted him. "Kobe, tell them the truth. We are not a couple. Do not let your name swallow mine again." Kobe's eyes softened. "I told them nothing. But Amara, I will not deny what I feel. I have fallen for you, not because you saved me, but because you are stronger than anyone I have ever met." Amara shook her head. "Your feelings mean nothing if your change does not last. Words of love cannot erase the past. Time will prove you." He bowed his head. "Then let time be my judge." Weeks later, Biola's trial began. The recording of her confession was played in court, her crimes laid bare. As she stood in the dock, she glared at Kobe and Amara, venom dripping from her words. "You think you've won. You think Lagos will respect a cleaner. She will never be more than a house girl in people's eyes." But the judge silenced her. "This court sees not wealth or poverty, but truth. And the truth is Amara Nwosu was innocent. The guilty one stands before us now." Biola was sentenced to prison, her screams echoing as she was led away. Outside the courthouse, Amara faced the reporters with calm dignity. Today is not about me or Mr. Adeyemi. It is about truth. Let it be known that poverty does not equal guilt, and wealth does not equal innocence. Justice belongs to God and to those who fight for it. Her words spread across newspapers and television screens. For once, the story of Lagos was not about scandal or shame, but about redemption and resilience. As months passed, Kobe proved his sincerity. He visited Mushin not with cameras, but with quiet consistency. He sponsored Chidi's schooling, helped Ngozi with her health, and continued to expand Amara's company through fair contracts. Slowly, Amara's heart began to soften. She saw not just the man who had wronged her, but the man who was trying to rebuild himself. One evening at sunset, Kobe walked with Amara through the narrow streets of Mushin. The children's laughter echoed around them, and the scent of suya filled the air. He stopped and faced her, his voice low. Amara, I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to walk it with you. Not as a master to a servant, not as a billionaire to a cleaner, but as a man who loves a woman. Amara studied him quietly. Her heart no longer burned with anger, but she was not ready to surrender fully. She smiled faintly. Kobe, I'm not promising you everything, but I am willing to take it one step at a time. If your change is true, perhaps love will grow. He smiled, relief washing over his face. One step at a time. That is enough. And so they walked on side by side, their shadows long against the evening dust. Around them, neighbors whispered in awe. The proud man who was once feared was now humbled, walking with the woman he had once wronged. The tale spread far beyond Lagos, told in markets, and churches whispered in schools and offices. People said, the rich man accused the poor girl, but the poor girl saved him, and in the end, humility triumphed. For Amara, the greatest victory was not wealth or even forgiveness, it was reclaiming her dignity. For Kobe, the lesson was eternal riches mean nothing without humility, and love cannot be bought, only earned. And so their story closed not with perfection, but with hope. A hope that two worlds once divided by arrogance and poverty could meet in the middle through truth, sacrifice, and the courage to change. Life often tests us in the harshest ways, just as it tested Amara. She was innocent yet condemned, humiliated yet unbroken. Her choice to forgive, even when she had every reason to hate, became the very key that transformed a proud billionaire into a humble man. The story reminds us that dignity cannot be stolen, even when the world tries to shame us. True strength is not in wealth or power, but in the courage to forgive and the wisdom to rise above bitterness. Dear friends, what lesson did you learn from this journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like, and join our African Stories family, where truth, hope, and humanity always shine.